Welcome to Culture Couch Live. G'day, Murph, Chris, and Em. How are we all?
Hey, team.
Really looking tanned after your holiday there, Paul.
Yeah, good. I highly recommend Croatia. It was a bit of a special place. And Montenegro. If you ever want to go to a beautiful place, Kotor Bay, Montenegro. So that was sort of one out of the blue. Highly recommend. Murph, I know you've done Sail Croatia because you pushed your son off the boat. You told me that story. And had to swim after him. So
it's not quite the story, but I'll leave that for another day.
Saved his life. That was the story.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
My wife's mother was born in Montenegro.
Wow, beautiful place. Kotor Bay, Kotor. So anyone wants to travel advice on the Culture Couch Live viewers, I can highly recommend it. So, guys, I had a really interesting conversation, and often that becomes a good topic of our conversation. And it was around Collingwood Footy Club and Craig McRae and, the transformation. But then we got into coaching in a corporate sense. So I had a little bit of a conversation around football, and that was sort of the start of the topic. But then he asked me about coaching in a corporate sense. So it was a really fascinating Now, this is not external coaches, because what we said was, well, Craig is the coach within the team, and he's building relationships and he's helping his assistants and he's empowering people. And his question really was, why does that not happen in the corporate world? And we've had multiple sort of mini discussions around this on Culture Couch Live, Murph, haven't we? But throwing the question to you, because it's come up a lot, hasn't it, in our workshops recently as well. And we're probably getting more work as external coaches. But we're not talking about, what we're saying is, why don't people take the time internally to coach their staff? So some initial thoughts on that, and I'll go around the square in a sense, but I'll start with you, Murph.
How do you go around the square before we start?
Well, you can go around the square. I didn't say I'll circle around the square. I said I'll go around the square.
So we're seeing it. I don't know if it's been impacted by COVID, so people being out of the office, and then so we're just getting work done as when we've been external or off-site, and as a result, we've forgotten about the skill of coaching, or whether it just has always been there. I'm not sure, but what we're seeing is that there's a real trend at the minute to helping executives and middle managers understand what is coaching. So in a sporting team, as you as head coach, Ruzi, you spend your whole time either coaching players or coaching coaches.
Yeah.
And when we say coaching, in some ways we're talking about teaching, aren't we?
Yeah. 100%.
But what we're finding in the corporate sector, either people aren't there, so that you can't coach people when they're not there. It's very hard. Or secondly, people are getting caught doing the work. So when you're a head coach, you can't go and play the game. You've got to sit in the coach's box and watch it play out. And if you haven't taught or coached your players well enough during the week, then it falls to you and you'll lose. Yeah. So but the trouble with corporate leaders is we can jump back in. And so what I think is we're not taking the time to step back and say, my job is to teach or coach the people that I lead so that they can teach and coach the people that they lead. And then even being more specific, breaking the skills down into bits, like really, really segmenting down which part do you have to teach first, and how do you scaffold learning and skill development. So in essence, it's a skill acting we're talking about. And I just don't think that our leaders are, number one, taking the time or have thought about how to break a skill down to teach it and then spend that time with the people they're coaching. Because in sport, as you know, pretty much that's all you do.
That's all you can
do. How do I teach this player to catch, kick a ball or tackle, or even tackle? Even watching tackling at Gold Coast Suns, they break the tackling skill down into it's probably about 10 different bits to a tackle. And it's quite amazing. Do we do that in the workplace?
It's interesting. Even in the job description, Murph, what you said then really sparked
Yeah.
Is coaching or teaching written in the job description? I suspect in most it's not.
Yeah.
You know, so you're actually, if your starting point is here's your job, and it's not written in your job description, it's really hard to do, Em. And I'll go to you because I love the way Murph broke that down.
Yeah.
But potentially it's not front of mind, is it? So you've got your job, whatever that job is, and it's not front of mind that I'm actually a teacher rather than here is my job and I have to do the job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember, Jez, way back in 2011, in the first year or so you were teaching me, the front slide was you get what you reward. Right. And so now I just wrote down, if the leader's job role, what it should be is, it should be what Dan Coyle, to create an environment for others to perform. That's a leader's job, right?
Yeah.
But then you've got a corporate job description role scorecard that's connected to outcomes.
Yeah.
Not growing and developing people. Then you get what you reward. You get a leader who goes and does and gets stuck in the player coach syndrome, jumping on the field, which is where I was back in 2011, right? Just give it to me. We'll get a quick result. And I'm trying to build an environment where the team feels like they own the company. And all I was doing was building an environment that was dependent on me. Complete opposite of what I was trying to create. So it comes down to, are you setting your leaders up for success? Because if they're attached to outcomes, like especially in sales, the sales manager should not have a sales target as a standalone human.
Yeah. That
is the number one biggest mistake that I've learned from a good mate, mentor Jack Daly. Sales managers should have their own targets, and it destroys everything because they're going to try and kick goals instead of teach people how to kick goals when the pressure hits. And that's the exact example of not managing the player coach syndrome, which we talk about a lot.
And it's interesting because, we work in obviously a lot of industries. Sort of real estate's one that comes to mind.
Big one. Yeah.
But also, Chris, I mean, you've been in the car business for a long, long period of time, which can be very outcome focused, because it can be a simple math, can't it? It can be, well, we've sold 5 cars this week, we've sold 10 cars this week, we've sold 11. And it's a little bit like the scoreboard of a footy ground. You know, we know in sport whether we win or lose, and it's really easy, I suspect, in the car business just to continually go back to the scorecard. So through your lens in that industry, what's the thing that's going to trigger the change there? I mean, how do we get people to think about coaching and teaching rather than 10 cars sold, 11 cars sold, 12 cars sold, et cetera, et cetera?
I think it kind of gets back to that thing that we always talk about, which is care is time. And a lot of times we don't take the time to really think about why we're in those positions of authority, or what were those skill sets that I developed along the way that got me promoted into this position. Yeah. And so you see this, it's exactly what Jez is saying, where we have this player coach syndrome. It's easier for me just to do it because I can do it, because I don't take the time to really train my people up with those skills and break it down into those fundamentals of, I wrote this down of, is there clarity across the team about what our standards and expectations are? What are our values and behavior? We're not conscious of this and not checking in with it consistently. All of these things conspire against us in low performance and where we're consistently challenged with underperformance.
It's interesting because you mentioned about the coach of a football team, and Sydney was probably a little bit different because I was a new coach, but Melbourne was exactly what you said. Really, all I did at Melbourne was coach and manage people. That was pretty much it. And you guys have heard this story before, but it's probably got reminded of, I was staying with Johnny Blakey, who was North Melbourne assistant coach, and day after the game, whether it's Sunday night or Sunday morning, I'd walk down and I go, mate, what are you doing? He go, I'm coding the game. And I thought to myself, what a complete and utter waste of time that is for an individual assistant coach to code the game without all the coaches there. And again, you've heard this before, Murph, and I think Em. I used to say to the guys, I don't want you don't even have to look at the game. You can if you want to, but I don't care when we play. We're coming in Monday morning and we're going to code the game from 8 o'clock. And I think you've all said the same thing. This was the most education the assistant coaches got during the week, and it set up our whole week. Because suddenly, not only, Murph, as you said, we go through the technical side of our game, kicks, marks, handballs. We also talked about then, Chris and Em, the behaviours within the game, the behaviours we needed to talk about. So that 4 hours got me back, I don't know, 20 hours in the week. And I'm sitting there watching Johnny Blake, and I'm going, Johnny, I don't know why you're wasting your time doing that. So Murph, back to, because you've said it as well, why do we not take the time to set up the system for coaching in the corporate world?
Because people are just so busy doing. And to be honest, I don't know. People will just say they're so busy, and I just it freaks me out. Some of the best leaders we know are the most responsive in some of the biggest companies versus people who run 20 people and say, I haven't got time. So there's, but I think there's a piece there, Ruzi, which you touched on. Sometimes we think one-to-one is the best way to go. And we absolutely advocate one-to-one meetings. So you should be catching up with your team one-to-one regularly. But we forget about coaching from a team perspective, from a small group perspective. So sometimes a staff meeting could easily be a teaching or coaching session.
Unbelievable.
And by the way, the leader doesn't have to take it. So some of the best learning comes from a member of the team picking a topic and saying, this is how I would do it. What are your thoughts? And what you're doing then is you're sharing, not only learning to understand what they know, and more particularly what they don't know, because the coach's job is really to find out what people don't know so that they can then teach them. But it's also gives them the opportunity to share and consolidate skills. So when I meet with you, Ruzi, one-on-one, you're the only person that gets the benefit of it. And then I go and meet with Emil one-on-one, and same thing, and same with Chris. But so I've had all these different conversations, but no one's had the benefit of connecting it all together. So if the four of us sit down and have a chat about, this is how I would do it, and this is the best way to do it, it connects. So we're all on the same page, exactly the same scenario that you were doing with your assistant coaches. But for some reason, we've got staff meetings now. They've got to have this agenda. It's got to be this, 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 and this. And people just turn up and go through the motions. Like so often, how often do we go to a workshop, and that's what people are doing. So I think there's a lot to be said for small group coaching and allowing other people to take it. So park your ego, get the hell out of the way, and let someone else take it. Because if you can allow your team to start teaching, and then you can just sum it up, tidy it up at the end, it just is such a powerful tool.
Even to see your meeting as a workshop. I like that philosophy as well.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing a lot of.
What is your meeting? Rather than just having this agenda, P&L, this and this and this, how can we teach and inform and coach within the meeting? So if we turn our meetings, and effectively that's what the Monday review was. It was a workshop. It was. Hang on, rewind that again, John. No, hang on. I know you've been working with the forwards, mate, but is that what you were teaching? No, okay. Well, if it's not, can we go over that with the forward? So all of a sudden, we're actually turning our meetings into workshops, and we're getting so much more done within that workshop.
So I've been harping on that for a while now. And it actually came through the COVID journey where, as a person who loves people and connecting, you come to a meeting with the anticipation and expectation of connection, and then you get to the meeting and the leader would just dump a bunch of information, provide updates, sort of speak out to each individual, they speak back, and then, right, good stuff, thanks guys, and off we go. So 90% of the time, a primary leader or one or two other people are speaking, and the rest of people don't speak at all. That happens 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row. Cameras off. Now we're just waiting for the meeting to be over. And I thought, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? What
Yeah.
if the leader came in and said, right, I don't have to prepare any information. I just want to decide what questions do I want the team to discuss and answer. And then go, right, here's the 4 questions for the day. Next, first person. Great. Catch the good of it and coach the gaps.
Yeah.
So you use what they say to say, that's brilliant. And just remember, go and make sure that security understands that pass is going to, and so that everyone hears that information. You got to go to security to get something done. And you're all like your scenario with the team, we're all learning that you need to have a body across, arm across in this defensive play, and everyone hears the same thing. Then the leader speaks last, and to Jez's point, wraps it up. And then that list of 12 things to present turns into 3, because the other 9 were spoken about by the team. And Jez raises a really good point. I think that the most amount of learning from a group conversation is when the leader facilitates and peers share what they did. And another peer goes, I'm as good as Chris. I can do that. And they change their behavior because a teammate, not because what the leader said to do, but because of positive peer group pressure. So now the whole meeting is flipped on its head, and the cognitive load for the leader is, don't have to come in with any information. I just have to come in with questions and a curiosity mindset.
Isn't it funny? We get locked in a routine sometimes. It's, there's a meeting on Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's about. There's an agenda, and I'll just turn up, sort of thing. I think the other thing, Chris, is in turning to you, because you actually learned a new skill when you and I met. You were American football player starting to play Australian rules football. And the interesting thing is, and I've seen this a lot, if we coach someone at something, we actually become better at it ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably one of the most underrated things about coaching.
Yeah.
So talk to that about how important that is. And I'll give a story after, Chris, that you speak. But learning a new skill and then starting to teach it helps you become better at it.
It's funny you say that, because when I go back to those times, I had a knee surgery and I couldn't play. And so I was having to teach all these Americans that we were bringing in, breaking it down. Well, how did I do it? Well, shit, I don't know how I did it.
Yeah.
So we're having to break it down into those basic fundamentals. And it's funny how sometimes empowering somebody in a senior capacity, who's in a senior capacity, to mentor a new person coming in, how it refreshes their view of the work,
100%.
because maybe they were skipping steps somewhere along the way. And so it's absolutely a powerful methodology for training.
Well, they say, Ruzi, that one of the things is, in order to teach something, you have to truly understand it.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start to try and teach something, if you don't understand it properly, it's a really big wake-up call. You go, oh my God, I've got to go back and learn those steps in between. And so it's a really good point.
So just for people listening now, and we all probably know that there's probably just a lack of knowledge around it. So maybe just to finish off, what's it? So I'm sitting there, I'm listening to us talk about, I'm going, I've got this intent to want to be a good teacher and coach. I just don't know where to start. Where do I start? Em, I'll go to you. So I'm sitting there listening to Culture Cast Live, makes sense to me. Where am I going to start? So Monday morning, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go and I'm going to become a better leader by coaching my people better. Now, and you made the comment, Murph, we're not just talking about C-suite or CEO. We're talking about empowering people at all different levels of the organization. Where do I start? Em, and then I'll go to you and finish with you, Murph. Chris, I'll go to you after.
For me, there's an individual and a team perspective. From an individual perspective, book a one-on-one with each direct report. Take them out for lunch on a schedule, and your only job in the meeting is to understand them. So go with nothing but a bunch of questions, and with the curiosity mindset. But I think at the core of it, and this is just a question you ask, what do you need from me as your leader? What do you want to get better at? How can I help you grow? So it's just flipping the whole question. What can I do for you? What do you need from me as your leader? And then at the end of that meeting, book the next meeting. right? Leave with a commitment and then go, right, when we get to next meeting, we're gonna keep going on this topic. Fantastic. Right?
Even the intent. Even just start with the intent. So I
That's
love
right,
that. So here it is. I intend to help you. How can I help you?
And then the
Chris-
same thing from the team perspective is flip your meetings and say, here's the questions I want you to answer before the meeting, and come prepared to share them.
Yep.
And then speak last as the leader. Flip and make your meetings look like a workshop.
Perfect. Chris?
Yeah, I think a lot is lost on the idea. I think fundamentally, coaching is asking, not telling.
Yeah.
And so I think that fundamental aspect of kind of laying the groundwork for it has to start with catching the good, because anything corrective is going to fall on deaf ears without it. And then just a lot of what Emil's saying is be a good listener, be attentive listener, with the idea that somebody's identifying an area of growth that they want to work on themselves, and that we're checking in on that and kind of facilitating that part of it. You know, they may say this is an area and maybe we add a little sugar to it, you know, but I think to me, that's one of the areas we're constantly working on.
Yeah, I think catching the good is so underrated, and it comes up in just about all our workshops, you know, because by nature leaders think we've got to improve their
gaps.
God, I was in that industry forever. You know, improve your left foot, improve this, improve that, and I'm like, well, why don't you just tell me what I'm doing well, sort of thing. So Murph, I'll leave the last bit to you. Where do we start? Because I want to get going. I want to be a good coach. I want to be a good teacher, but I'm not sure where I need to go.
So I would break down, work out the skills you want the team to develop, and then break those skills down into little steps.
Yeah.
So work out which steps you have to develop first, and then choose a person in your team that's the best at each one of those skills, and get them to run a 20-minute session, 20-minute session for the team.
Masterclass.
And then review that session. But you have to know it first, and it will take a bit of time. And then go to the next skill and get someone else from the team to teach that skill. And so what you'll do is you'll start to develop the skill set, the presentations of the whole group. And we'll get
curriculum of sorts.
We'll get really good learning, So, but it does require the leader to understand the skill first, so that you can facilitate the review of the team member teaching the rest of the group.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's good, Matt. It's funny because you're talking about breaking the skills down. I mean, my era of playing, we used to stick at circle work and lane work, and and to be fair to the coaches, like Parko, Wolsey was a school teacher, Parko was a lecturer. They didn't have time to teach intricate skills. It was survival of the fittest. But I remember going to when I retired, I went going to America in 1999. It was I went to the San Francisco 49ers and watched them train. It was like clockwork. You know, it was unbelievable. Breaking down the individual, quarterback to wide receiver was there. Offensive linemen were working over there. Defensive linemen were working over there. Tight ends. And then all of a sudden they'd bring one group together, and then they bring two groups together, and they bring three. And I learned so much from that session, and pretty much revamped our whole system at the Sydney Swans. Pre-season, Murph, was November, December was kicks, marks, handballs, backwards and forwards, tackling drills, et cetera. And then we built up over time. So I really liked. So, guys, that was a great conversation, and hopefully, I think for me the advice is just see yourself as a teacher. So just at the end of each day, did I teach today, or did I do everything? Did I teach, or did I do everything? And that's probably a really simple way of.
And it's an uncomfortable feeling. That was my experience. I got to the end of a day and went, I just did nothing.
Yeah.
And then but then I'd go home and look at the Slack, and there was just so much stuff going on. I'm like, I feel useless. So just be warned. If you do it really good, you might start feeling useless.
Well, there's another market. It's hard to feel useless. You're doing a good job. So anyway, good. Well done, guys. That was an awesome conversation. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Em.
Thanks, Ruzi. Cheers, guys.
All right. Okay,
Good
guys.
team.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
We'll see you next week on the Culture Cast Live. Thanks a lot.